Welcome to the Messianic Hour with Rabbi Scott Sekulow. The Messianic Hour is a program designed to give you insight into the Jewish roots of your faith. Rabbi Scott is also here to answer your questions and help you gain a deeper understanding of Bible prophecy. And now, here's your host, Rabbi Scott Sekulow.
Shalom and welcome to another edition of the Messianic Hour. I'm your host, Rabbi Scott. I'm here with my wife, Judy. This show is dedicated to reaching the lost and educating the found, and we're glad you're with us today. This has been a very interesting week. We have just celebrated the 11th anniversary of 9/11, and with that, we see uprisings going on in the Middle East. We have reports that have come in that our ambassador to Libya has been murdered, along with 3 other gentlemen, and these uprisings also going on in Egypt as well. All, I believe, are part of the reminder of what's taking place on 9/11. These are attacks against our country. Terrorism is still taking place, and we need to be prepared. This is a time of us shoring up our allies in the Middle East, and yet, what does our president do? The Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will be in country next month, wants to meet with our president, and after the situation on the Democratic floor where supposedly they took out by mistake God and Jerusalem as the capital, the president says it was his decision to put it back in. What does he do? He snubs the Prime Minister to not have a meeting, saying that he's just too busy. How are we too busy for our strongest ally when we continue to see what's going on in the Middle East and the problems taking place? We've criticized President Bush when he went against Israel. We're going to criticize President Obama when he does this. This is not a smart political move, as we see the importance of what is going on in the Middle East and the fact that either nominee needs the Jewish and evangelical support. And this, I think, is another big blow to really show that while he might say one thing about his support for Israel, he's really not showing what's going on. We need to pay attention to what's going on in that land. And with the high holy days right around the corner, we need to be prepared for what's going on. I want to encourage you, this coming up Sunday starts the feast of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Teruah, the Jewish New Year, the sounding of the shofar. I want to encourage you, if you are in the Atlanta area, join us. Our service starts at what time, Judy?
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock Sunday night, and we want you to join us for this special service. And then Monday morning at 11 a.m., no tickets are required. Everyone, it's welcome. It's open for everyone. Please come and join us. If you are coming, please wear the appropriate clothes. This is more of a time of dress up, if you want to say. If you have a suit and tie, that's very appropriate. Of course, it will take you any way you are, but please join us at this very special time. If you don't have a congregation in your area, you can watch live streaming right online. We'll live stream the entire service. We had over 2,500 people watching last year online. So we want you to join us in person or on the net. It'll be a great opportunity. For more information, go to rabbiscott.com. While you're at our website, sign up for our newsletter, get the free book, I Have a Friend Who's Jewish to You, and the prophecy card just for signing up. We'll be back right after this break looking at Acts chapter 28.
Welcome back to the Messianic Hour. I'm Judy Sekulow, and I'm glad that you're with us today as you're watching and listening to us. And we are going to be on Acts 28, that final chapter in the book of Acts. And we see that Rabbi Shaul and all of the men have come up on this island called Malta. And I think the really interesting thing is when you go and look at what this word means, it actually means refuge. And if you take it back, the verb malt is actually to escape. So I'm sure Rabbi Shaul and Luke were not exactly unaware of the irony of the name of the island that they landed on.
I hope they had the sense of humor. And it's interesting because if they didn't hit this island, the next stop is about 200 miles away, and most likely they would not have made it during this time. So this really was a city of refuge, as we see in the scripture, and there was a protection. And Judy, as you know, While they're there, the natives welcomed them into their island, very pleasant. The head honcho, so to speak, the main father of the island, invited at least Paul and the Romans to his place. But before then, he has a little situation on the beachfront where they're preparing a place to keep the men, the 276 men, warm. A snake comes out and bites Saul on the hand, and the natives determine what?
Well, they just figured he's a convict, and this is kind of the judgment that he has. But as we know, he survives this bite, and they're all kind of in awe of, wow, what's going on here?
Right. Now, we don't know if this was the type of snake that would cause death, but obviously because it's not described what kind of snake it was, but from the reaction of the natives, we have to assume this was a poisonous snake. That's where some faiths, come in with this, snake handling and all that. I don't know if I'll go that far. But we do see here that he is healed from the situation, and God uses this to show them the truth. And so we have them on the island for several months, and they get ready to depart, and they finally on their last leg of going to Rome.
They are, and I'm sure Paul has to kind of wonder what reception he's going to get. Has word of all these things that have been said against him reached Rome? Is he going to find some sympathy among some believers and have some fellowship there? Or are they going to be all against him? And he's really got to be wondering this. And when they're on, they land, they're on their way, and a delegation of believers actually come to meet him to officially welcome him. So now his fears are laid to rest. He knows the type of reception he's going to get. But this really begins it's the beginning of the end. Even though the court system's backed up, we know that
thousands of years later,
it's still backed
up.
It was going to be some time before he was going to be coming in front of Nero. But he was actually granted kind of like a private house to stay in. He had a Roman soldier attached to him at all times. But he really did enjoy some relative freedom, and he had the freedom to sit here and talk to the Jewish community and started inviting them in. And this is where we see this sixth defense.
And even before that, Judy, I want to back up a little bit, because when he gets off at the boat, they stay in that city for about a week, and it really kind of shows you, too, he must have really developed a relationship with the soldiers that were watching him, that he received that much leeway. We see from the movies and all that, you don't really see these nice, friendly people as soldiers, but something changed here, and we see this connection where they really had trust and faith in who he was saying and the God, I believe, that they were worshiping. So while it doesn't say they were believers, I think many of them had come to faith in Messiah, that we see this ability for him to be able to do what he could do.
And we know that in Rome there were no formal charges against him, at least as far as we know. But there, you still have the rumors, and his opponents in Jerusalem were still accusing him of teaching against the Torah and against the Jewish people and against the temple. And we really see here where he does his strongest denial of the charges yet. And he says, I have done nothing against our people or the customs of our fathers.
And Judy, this is something that's very important to realize and to understand, and I want to really focus in on this in a minute. What we see here is the opposite of what's being taught in the many churches today, that Paul was against the Torah, that he was against all this, that he had done away with it, that we don't need it anymore. Yet his very words here say, I've done nothing wrong. I've done nothing against Torah or our traditions. Meaning, he was the Jew of Jew before he was a believer. He is still a Jew of Jew after being a believer. Nothing changed in that. The Torah was not to be done away with. So we see here in the word of the book of Acts that Saul is a Jew, born a Jew, will die a Jew, and kept the customs and the Torah without any problems.
And again, I think this is one thing where we say you've got to go back and understand it in context. And if you don't understand it in context, you completely miss the meaning of the verse. And here, when he says the customs of our fathers, he's not just talking about written Torah at this point in time. He's talking about oral tradition also. He's talking about everything that could possibly encompass the Torah. So Shaul is saying in his own words that he's not even breached oral traditions. And if you don't go back and take it in context, you're not going to understand the significance of his words there.
Right. And as you said, nothing had come from Jerusalem saying that there was a problem. So they decide, these men say, we want to hear what you have to say. They'd heard about the sect of believers. They'd heard negative things about them, but they wanted to hear firsthand what was going on. Remember, in 49, many of them were kicked out of Rome because of the Jews who believed in Messiah. And so that while there might have been a prejudice against us, they were willing to listen. And again, we don't see any of them say, but wait, we know that you're eating ham and you're going to church on Sunday and you're doing all these things. None of that was said. None of them disproved what he was saying. On the contrary, they saw by his actions that he was still keeping the traditions and the Torah just like he was supposed to, and just as we know, us as believers, both Jew and Gentile, can keep it not for our salvation. That comes through our faith in Messiah. But we do it because we love the Lord and we want to honor and obey him. How do you honor and obey him? You follow his commandments. His commandments are the Torah.
Well, and we see that Luke summarizes probably this long dissertation that Shaul did. And we see in Acts 28:20 that he concludes it is because of the hope of Israel that I am bound with this chain. But that hope of Israel is a term that's actually borrowed from Jeremiah. And I know you're going to want me to read it, so I'm going to go on and do it. But it's Jeremiah 17, verses 13. It says, O Lord, the hope of Israel, all who forsake you will be put to shame. Those who turn away from you will be written in the dust, because they have forsaken the Lord, the spring of the living water. So Paul is now, again, as always his custom, even if he, in this case, he couldn't get to the synagogue, but he goes to the Jewish people first. And he gives, his defense, but in his defense is all about Messiah and proclaiming the kingdom of heaven is now, and it's found in Messiah Yeshua. And what happened is the whole community starts discussing it and talking about it, and now they're all talking about Messiah.
Right. Now, it says that they were arguing. We have to explain what that means. In Jewish sense, that means discussion. When we, sometimes it could sound like an argument, but they were, like you said, they were talking about it. They were discussing it. It says many believed. Mm-hmm. Some did not, but many did. So you see here, he shares the gospel to the Jewish community there, and many of them start accepting faith in Messiah. Again, he doesn't now say to them, forget the commandments, forget the Torah, forget all the old stuff. You're now free, go do whatever you want. On the contrary, what we see here is them going to continue to live their life as Jews. But that argument comes up because God had to cover the eyes of the Jewish people for a season so that the Gentiles can come in. And that's what we're going to finish up next week as we look at the end of this chapter and kind of take it into some of the epistles to understand what took place before the ultimate final defense before Caesar. But it's very interesting to see here how this is all coming together and how he used this time to reach the Jewish community. But yet his ultimate goal is to the Gentiles as well. To the Jew first and then to the nations. And that's exactly what we see him doing here. He said, now that I've shared it with you, I'm now going to the Gentiles to bring this into play. And that's what takes place. So we're going to see that next week. I really want to encourage you, go to our website, rabbiscott.com. Sign up for our newsletter. Remember, we are a listener-supported show. We appreciate your support. You can also bless Israel by planting a tree in Israel right there on our website. Check it out. We'll be back right after this. Stay tuned.